everyone, welcome to Summer Family Evenings. Tonight we have Assistance Dogs of the West. I am Katie Bruhl, Executive Director at PEEC, and I'll be your moderator for tonight. I want to say a huge thank you to Del Norte Credit Union. They have been making Summer Family Evenings possible for 6 years now, so thank you so much to them. We have Summer Family Evenings every Wednesday in June and July. You can go to peeknature.org to see the full list and to sign up for upcoming programs. After tonight's program, we're going to be sending you an evaluation. If you could email that back to us, we would really appreciate it. It helps us with our funding with the county. And I want to give a special shout out to our members and donors. Thank you so much for making these programs possible as well. A few logistics for our live stream tonight. Jody, our presenter, is going to be taking questions via Zoom chat. So if you don't know where that is, look for the chat feature in the Zoom app menu bar. You might have to move your mouse for it to appear. You'll either see a chat icon there or you might need to click on more. So type your questions at any time in the chat bar and I will give them to Jody at the end. So tonight we have Jody Densmore as our presenter. She is from Assistance Dogs of the West. I'm going to let her tell you about Assistance Dogs of the West, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. She has an extensive background working with animals, children, and people with disabilities. She was a volunteer with Assistance Dogs of the West, received an Assistance Dogs of the West Assistance Dog Handler certification, and then was hired as a trainer in 2005. Jody has continued her education through professional development training courses, including health education, disability awareness, autism, and advanced dog training. Her responsibilities include instruction, training, program presentations, potential client relations, client placement training, owner self-training, and curriculum enhancement. So she does a lot over there. And Jody is also the staff baker and goodie maker. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jody. Let's see if we can start her video and get her going here. And I will turn myself off and stop my screen share. Hey, I see Jody. All right.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good evening. I like your background. Looks like you're outside. So, my name is Jody. I am the lead trainer for Assistance Dogs of the West here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I think the first thing I'm going to talk about is what it is exactly that we do. I have with me Bento. He's a dog in training, and he is going to be working with somebody in a wheelchair. And I'll explain that a little bit later when we do some demos. Bento, sit. Yes, good boy. So he's just going to hang out with me while I talk a little bit. We train dogs for people with disabilities and courthouse facility, FBI, and crisis response dogs. So there's a big umbrella of service dogs. Inside that umbrella, or down from the umbrella, there are categories of service dogs, of dogs that work. So in those categories, it would be assistance dogs, what we do, and there are guiding eyes for the blind, we don't do. Hearing impairment, dogs for hearing impairment, we don't do. Police dogs, we don't do. Explosive detection dogs, search and rescue. If you think of any kind of dog that has a job, that is under the umbrella of service dogs. So we specifically are assistance dogs. Pretty much everything inside of hearing impairment and sight impairment, those two types of dogs, also assistance dogs, but they're leader dogs. So guiding eyes for the blind and dogs for hearing impairment, they actually make safe choices for their person. So they guide them, they stop them at crosswalks, they would lead them out of the way if there was a flag hanging down and their head would touch it. For hearing impairment, they let them know that the microwave is finished, that somebody's at the door, that their phone is ringing. So those dogs actually make the choice for the person. Our dogs hang out until I need them to do something. So it's quite a different type of training for the leader dogs than it is for our dogs that kind of hang out until we need them to do something. Although with relationships, our dogs will fill in the blanks, so to speak. So if I dropped my leash right now, Bento would automatically get it without me saying anything to him, because our relationship, our training together, and just the consistency of I drop something, I ask him to pick it up every time. That's his job. So eventually through his training, that becomes consistent. And when I drop something, he automatically picks it up and fills it in for me, which is kind of nice. And will be nice for his person when he gets to working. Our courthouse facility dogs work with child advocacy, and that is a program for children or youth that have either been a victim or a witness to a violent crime. And they may have to go through the court procedure and be separate from their families, have to do interviews, and they may have to go to court. So a dog would start with them from the very beginning of the first interview and travel with them through the process of the court. And it gives them somebody to talk to. It gives them stress relief. We know that dogs relieve stress. So it's just a companion for them to be in the process and share their story. Crisis response dogs are dogs that would work with crisis response teams. Crisis response meaning a big event that affects a lot of people. So if something tragic happened at a school, crisis response would be called out and dogs would go and be on site also. Again, part of their job is relieving stress. It is pretty interesting what dogs can do for people when they are stressed and having a traumatic event. And then the FBI dogs. FBI dogs do exactly that, and a little bit like crisis response dogs, but they work for the FBI. Our dogs, we have a breeding program. So we breed litters throughout the year, and all of those dogs are raised with the intention of working. Bento is he loves his name. Bento is a dog that we bred, and he was from the Heroes group. I'm going to pull this down just a little bit so you can see more of that guy because he's pretty cute. Good job staying, buddy. Let me get myself situated. So I am actually not a wheelchair user, but I use it when I'm with Bento because he will be working with somebody in a wheelchair. So yes, that's correct. Almost. That's almost. Yes, better. Good. Oops. Yes, good boy. So he filled all of that in. When I'm working with a dog, my conversation kind of jumps around because I need to address what's happening in the moment. That's the beauty of dog training. It's not black and white. It's kind of methodically all over the place, if that makes sense. So I work in a wheelchair with him because he's going to be working with somebody in a wheelchair. So that only makes sense, right? That he's used to it. So Bento is from our Heroes litter. And he was named after a veteran dog that worked with him in the Army. And good boy. It takes anywhere between 1.5 years and 2 years to train a dog to be ready for placement. And in those 1.5 to 2 years, they live with trainers in our home. So we know them really, really well. And we know what they like to do and what they don't like to do. Not all dogs like to work with wheelchair, and not all dogs want to do scent work, which would be diabetic alert or seizure response work. Is that true? It's true. Pretty special when we get dogs that love to work with wheelchairs because they have a lot to filter and a lot to manage for themselves to be able to do the work with wheels, with multiple wheels. We have after-school programs throughout the school year. We have summer camps. We have in-school programs. We have puppy raisers. We have a veterans program. So the dogs are throughout the week in multiple classes. And then there's also personal training time for the trainers. So all of the trainers have a string of dogs that they are responsible for. And that is usually between 4 and 7, depending on how many we have in our pack at the time. I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of things that Bento can do and what he's learning to do. A big part of what the dogs do is retrieve work. So that would be picking the things up that I've dropped. We use golden retrievers and Labrador retrievers because their last name is part of the work that we need, right? So we just need to shape it the way that we need it. All of the dogs learn over 100 tasks. And then as they do interviews and start sorting out, good boy, that was correct. Down. Yes, good boy. They start sorting out what job it is that they like to do. Again, because we train them the same tasks across the board. And because they live with us and we spend so much time with them, we really know who they are. So when we get to the point of interviewing, we know who to pull in for those interviews that might be a possible match for somebody. So here we go. Here's some demos for you. So first things first, just to let you know, I'm probably going to walk with my feet a little bit. It looks a little bit odd because most people in wheelchairs don't use their feet to use their wheelchair. But I'm not proficient like this person is, so sometimes I need help with my feet to move myself around. So if I am Benton, turn, yes. Turn tells the dog to go in a 180. I'm going to try to stay in the screen. He heard that leash drop. And Bento, bring it here. Watch my hand. Yes, good boy. He shoves it right in my hand. I'm going to do it the other way so you can see it that way also, because it's pretty neat. He doesn't just put it in front of me. He actually shoves it into my hand. Good boy, bring it here. He's playing. Bento, bring it here. Yes, good boy. One more time. Let's see if we can get it real quick. Bento, bring it here. Yes, good boy. That was perfect. Did you see how I pushed my hand? Because he was putting that leash into my hand and making sure that I had it. That was really good. We do some maneuver work, which is see him turning his rear end into the wheelchair so that we line up. Yes, good boy. So it's kind of hard sometimes for dogs to understand that they have 4 feet and not just 2. I'm hoping that I can stay in. I can hardly see myself. Hold on. I'll move this. Okay. So Bento's job, when this is a brick, it's a round brick. And his job when we do this is to stand on the brick. And what the game is, I like to call it the game when I'm shaping the behavior. I'm not going to use any words except for good boy and thank you. His job is to use his back feet to take steps sideways, right? And that's going to line him up with me and the wheelchair. So I'm going to give him a little hint and move forward. Yes. He moves his back feet. I tell him yes and give him a piece of food. Let me give him another hint. Yes. Back feet moving. I'm going to wait and see what he chooses to do. Yes. That was a crossover walk. I hope you guys can see that. That's it. So that's it. Just tells him that he's thinking about it and he's on the right track. Yes. Good boy. That's very nice. Mm-hmm. Yes, good boy. I'm going to do a big turn here. Yes. Now see how he's lined up with my chair? Yes, good boy. That's perfect. That's a lot of work for a dog to understand their body in space and understand that they have back feet. Another one of my favorite ones is visit. Visit tells him to put his head in my lap for a couple of reasons, and I'll show you a few of them. Okay, so visit. It's so that, visit, if I'm a little bit nervous, if I'm in class and I'm taking a class and I have a test to take, Bento visit, yeah. It's very nice if I can pet my dog and he keeps his face there. like he is right now, and I'm just petting the little velvet of his nose. The other way we can use that is to clean his ears. We need to clean their ears and make sure that the dogs are healthy so that they can continue to work for us. So I would do a visit, yes, and then I can, yes, and then I can pick up his ear, and I'm looking in there. It looks really clean, yeah. So I'm inspecting the inside of his ear. So this task is really good because I can use it for my own well-being and my own needs, right? A little snuggle for my dog. I can also use it to check his eyes, wipe his eyes. I'm gonna look at his teeth. They're nice and clean, yeah? So I can use that for a lot. This is another one. I'm gonna put my brake on because he'll put me backwards. Bento, my lap. My lap. Yes, good boy. My lap would help me get him dressed. So we're gonna take a look at that. So I have to unhook it to get it off of his neck, but I'm gonna clip it and I'm gonna ask him to put his head through this. So I'm gonna do it as a my lap. Bento, my lap, yes. Get dressed. Yes, good boy. You're so nice, buddy. Awesome. Good job. So those are a couple of specialty tasks that the dogs can do. They also open doors and drawers. They can turn on lights and turn off lights, and it would be light and switch so they know which one I need. Light would be flicking the light switch up, and turning them off would be switch, and it tells them to take it and put their nose down. They can help people get dressed. They can bring them shoes so they can put their shoes on, but they do also help take off like a sweatshirt or a pair of socks. We get to do that training, so we're the ones that get all the tickles and the little toe nibbles before they go to a client, which is kind of fun. Bento, yes, turn, yes, down. Beautiful, that looks fantastic. Great. Does anybody have any questions for me? That's the basics of what we do and what we're up to over here. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, we had one question that was, how many dogs do you train at once?
That's a great question. And it depends on the level of skill. There's lots of factors in dog training. Normally we do one-on-one dog training, right? So I have one dog on the end of my leash and I would take him out and go training, or I would be in here in the facility and train. Sometimes if a younger dog is having a hard time with a particular task, if we train the younger dog that's having a hard time with an older dog that is proficient in the tasks that we're asking, they can actually teach them how to do it. It's pretty interesting. But that doesn't happen very often in the sense of we don't have a bunch of dogs out. I don't have a bunch of dogs out at the same time, unless I'm practicing some group things. Yep, he's the other way. Unless I'm practicing some group downs, like down saves, then I would get a couple of dogs out and they would have to manage themselves while their friends are out also. Down. Yes, good boy. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Yeah, someone wants to know how many dogs you place in a year.
We used to be around 10. That was quite a few years ago. This year we did 22. So it's slowly been rising the last couple of years. And we this year are up to 22.
Wow, how many trainers do you have for that many dogs to be trained?
We have 7. So we have about 32 dogs in the program and we have 7 trainers.
And so you'll have an entire pack of dogs living in your house?
Yes, ma'am. I currently have 5 dogs in my house, but 3 of them are mine. So Bento lives with me. He and Venus, the one that was barking, and I gave her a treat so she could occupy herself in her crate. She also lives with me. One of our other trainers was living with 14 dogs. She recently moved, and those dogs are slowly coming to the facility to live. We do have somebody that stays here overnight with the dogs. And then a lot of them go to either puppy raisers, or other trainers have a couple of dogs at a time. Our trainer in Taos usually has 5, and our trainer in Albuquerque usually has 3 to 5.
Wow. Somebody wanted to know, what is the hardest trick to train?
Oh, well, we don't train tricks. We train cues. We train tasks. And the
Sorry,
hardest...
they actually said skill. What is the most difficult skill?
Nice. Good choice of words. I like it. The hardest skill to train, let's see, you know, the inn that I was doing on the brick walk is pretty challenging. They do really well in the beginning, and then it's that last 4 or 5 inches that is a really challenging concept for them, because in their mind and in their body, they're already close. Does that make sense? So their rear end is sticking out a little bit, but I want them totally lined up with me straight, right? Because when I'm in public with dogs, I want to be as inconspicuous as possible, right? I want to look like a team. I want to be tight so that I know my dog is safe and carts aren't touching my dog's feet or their tails. So it's really important that their positioning is really correct. It's more for their safety, and so that we look like a team going in and people take us seriously. That's a hard one.
Great. Someone wants to know if any breed can be trained like this.
Absolutely, if they want to do the work. When we do owner self-training, which we do offer for dogs under the age of 3, that we do an assessment first, and that assessment tells us if the dog is willing to do the work that we ask them to do. It's a very small percentage of dogs that can work in public the way we need them to. I'm sure some of you have seen really good service dogs in public, and then maybe some service dogs are like kind of twirling around the end of their leash. They're pretty far away. They're not really paying attention. Those dogs, for us, we want our dogs to be really tight and really skilled, because it's not just being an ambassador for Assistance Dogs of the West, but it's being an ambassador for other assistance dogs in the world. And assistance dogs provide freedom for people that are living with disabilities and need extra help. One of the things I talk about often is if you're in a wheelchair, and let's say I was in an accident and I've broken my back and I can't bend over. If I drop my keys, how do I get them? Well, I have to wait for somebody to come by and ask them to pick up my keys, right? Or I have a service dog, and my service dog can do it. So that gives me freedom and independence to live my life more normally.
Great. Someone asked, how long does it take to train a dog? And I think you said 1.5 to 2 years. Is that right?
1.5 to 2 years, and that depends on the dog. Every dog is very different. Every dog, it depends on their work ethic, it depends on their maturity, and it depends on their skill set of when they're ready to be placed. But normally it's between 1.5 and 2. Every once in a while, we'll get a dog that's ready to go out the door at like 1 year and 3 months. Very rare. And sometimes it takes a dog 2.5 years before they're ready to go to work. They need that extra 6 months to mature into a working dog. I was saying earlier that it's a very small percentage of dogs that can actually work in the world the way that we need them to. We believe that that dogs get to choose if they want to do the work or not. We would never push them into doing something that they were uncomfortable doing. So that narrows it down. One of the things that surprises people when we do assessments, we go to a grocery store that is very close to our facility just to see what the dog thinks about the movement of the parking lot, the movement of walking up to the store, people in and out, grocery carts, people with bags in their hands, and those electric doors that open this way, and it's just an automatic open when there's a sensor on them. Lots of things happen in that very first opening. Air conditioning, It smells like food coming from inside the store. Even if we don't smell it, I promise you the dog does. The movement and the sound of carts, people talking. If people are speaking over a loudspeaker, that kind of sounds like a big hollow radio. All of these factors, and dogs can either go, I can do this, I can do the job with all of these distractions, and other dogs, it scares them. And we would never, ever, ever want to put a dog in public that doesn't enjoy filtering the world so that he can do his job.
So what breeds of dogs do you work with there? I know if other people bring their dogs, it's whatever breed, but what kinds of breeds do you breed there?
We breed English Labrador Retrievers, so they're a little bit stockier than you might know of labs to be. A lot of American labs are tall and lanky with really long snouts, and English Labradors are stockier. They have shorter legs, they have more barrel-shaped bodies and big, deep chests, and they have usually shorter ears, and they also have a shorter snout. And that's more of what you would see like in the show ring, English labs. The American labs, you would see more of a hunt trial dog or a hunting dog. We also use golden retrievers, and we use labradoodles. So standard lab and a standard poodle and a Labrador retriever cross.
Oh, cool. Someone wants to know, what is the cost to train one dog?
It costs our organization $30,000 to train a dog. And that is with obviously the salary of the trainer, their medical care, the overhead of facilities, their food, all of those things combined, $30,000. That is not what clients pay. Mm-hmm. They pay very minimum, and they pay for services, not for the dog.
Okay. And did you say that you train, do you train seizure alert dogs, and how do you do that?
Mm-hmm. So it's actually seizure response. We train the dogs to respond to a seizure happening, and post-dictal, which is when somebody is coming out of a seizure. It's called post-dictal. And we train the dogs what to do. A lot of that depends on what the person wants them to do. A lot of people want the dog to lay on them somehow, whether it's their head across their bellies or their face up at their shoulder. So when they kind of wake up, their dog is right here. Some people want the dog to go get the telephone for them, or they want them to go get in like an emergency medicine packet that they would put in several different places in their house. And then we train the dog to go check those specific places to get the medical bag. But it is a response. And then with relationship, the dog most of the time learns an alert. So alert is before the seizure, response is during and after the seizure. And with relationship, they will slowly learn what that smell is because it's trained on scent. They will learn what that scent is, and sooner and sooner and sooner, they're like, hey, that funny smell is coming. You better sit down, is basically what they do. Mm-hmm.
Neat. Someone said, what are some skills, I guess, that you would train a dog to do to help a veteran with PTSD or things like that?
Those are very, it's individual because each person wants something individual. But a lot of what they do is anxiety and PTS control. So that visit that I showed you, the MyLap that I showed you, those are two tasks that are pretty important to people with post-traumatic stress because it grounds them. I'm physically getting the dog's weight in my lap, either from their face or from their legs. When Bento was doing a MyLap, his feet are on my legs and his face is right here. Can't really concentrate on anything else if my dog's face is right here. So it really brings them back to right now instead of their minds doing their own memories. They can concentrate on their dog. Sometimes people want the dog to lean on them or to lay on their feet. They can wake them from night terrors if that is a dog, if that's a dog that wants to do, that type of job. We do a task called in line, and what that is the dog would stand in between the people's legs. Bento doesn't do it because that's not part of his job when he's working with somebody in a wheelchair. But the dog, I would stand up, and let's say I have to stand in line at the Veterans Hospital, which we know is can be stressful for veterans. So I'm going to see if I can lure him into this. I don't know if I can or not. Bento. Yes. Yes. That's right. Yes. Sit. That's it down. Yes, that's right. So this would be an inline. And what this is my dog's head is right here. I can touch him. I can put my legs up against him. I can't do it because he hasn't been trained to do it. So I squeezed him a little bit and he bolted out of there. But we can train them to take a little bit of touch on their sides as I put my legs up against them. And it's very, very grounding and can relieve a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. Yes. One of the things that a lot of veterans ask for is a sweep, which is to get to your home and the dog goes in and does a sweep and then comes back out. And we actually don't train that. Studies have shown that causes more anxiety to wait at the door and wait for your dog to do a sweep and come back, because a lot of times they do that in other situations, not at the home, and it can trigger some more PTS. So a lot of people think they want it, but it's actually not something that we train. Yeah. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry.
You ready for another question?
I sure am.
Okay, you mentioned night terrors. Someone wants to know if you train dogs to wake people up with sleep apnea or other things like that.
We do not. Nope, that is too, it's relying too much on life-threatening experiences, if that makes sense. And we've not trained that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And someone wants to know what type of training or certification you went through to become a trainer.
I have done so much continuing education. My first part of this career path was volunteering with the founder, and I just kind of tucked up under her belt for a good 4 or 5 months, and then I got my handler's certification, which is a public access test and a practical test on dog training and handling a dog, a service dog, an assistance dog. And then after I was hired on, it's just continuing education all the time.
Great, thank you. I think that might be all our questions. Does anyone else have a question for Jody? Oh, wait, someone said I do.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question, which is what happens to the puppies that you breed that don't work?
Well, we're very proud to announce that doesn't happen very often. We have a great training program, and we have great professional handlers and trainers that work the dogs through issues that come up. Every once in a while, I would say once a year, sometimes not once a year, sometimes twice a year, we have dogs that don't want to do the work that we need them to do, right? So remember, they work in public and they have to filter. I talked about the doors opening and first the smells and the sounds, all of those things. If a dog really, really, really doesn't want to do that work, we will try to do a career change with them. And that might mean that they have all the skill sets to help somebody, but they don't want to do it in public. So that dog would become a home helpmate. That is working with somebody that doesn't even particularly want the dog to go in public with them, because it's a big responsibility and it's a lot of work. It's not It's not a lot of work to get a service dog. It's a lot of work. Even though we've trained them for 2 years, the person now has to build that relationship and reiterate all of the tasks that the dog knows to work for them in their life. So if they don't do a home helpmate, we have career changed dogs into search and rescue dogs, border patrol dogs, hearing dogs. So we try to give them their best option to live their best life. Once in a while, they go to a family and they just become their family pet.
Great, thank you. All right, we had 2 more questions come in. One
Yes.
is the ownership of the dog transferred to the recipient when the dog is placed.
After 2 years, we co-own for 2 years, and we do that to make sure that everything is in place. So the dog continues to work, that the person maintains the work. So a dog doesn't come to you fully trained. We never say that a dog is fully trained because the world still happens, right? I might have a dog that is really, really strong and a really good worker, and then we're walking down the sidewalk and an old truck backfires and it scares the heck out of them. I have a lot of work to do to recover the dog from loud noises. So it's always a work in progress. The dog is always in training because the world still happens. And so we co-own for 2 years to make sure that everybody is happy and doing the work that they need to be doing.
Great. And someone wants to know, are the dogs trained to get along with other animals? Like, do you raise them with other animals just in case?
I take it you mean cats and birds and horses, cows, things like that. Yeah,
Yep.
most of our, llamas. We are very lucky in Santa Fe. We have a school called La Mariposa. It's a Montessori school, and it is animal-based. So it's a little fabulous barnyard over there. And we have a program in school. So the dogs that go to that program, and we can go over there anytime we need to train dogs around potbelly pigs, llamas, donkeys, a horse, chickens, homing pigeons, trying to think of what else he has over there, goats. And then the founder of Assistance Dogs of the West lives on a horse farm. So they are around horses and cows. So her fence line, and then the next field over are cows and horses. So they all get used to smelling and being around and watching how those animals move through the world. Birds, we don't have anybody on our team that has a pet bird. So that is something that we would train kind of on the spot, if that makes sense. If it looks like this person and this dog are getting along and they might be a good match, I would do a home visit and have the dog introduce themselves to the bird or a gerbil or whatever animal that is that we don't have access to, and see how the dog takes it. And most of the time, they don't care. They're so used to the other ones that they're like, oh, fine, a rabbit, it's fine.
That's great. Well, have you been to the nature center and seen Superpowered dogs? That's my question.
No. Superpowered dogs, is that the wolf sanctuary? No.
No, it's a movie that we've been showing in the planetarium about working dogs. It is really awesome. Yeah. Well, when we reopen, you'll have to come and see it.
Yes, I will.
And I keep saying that was the last question, and then someone gives me another question. So here's one more.
I'm here for all of it.
How long is your wait list for people who want dogs?
That's a really good question, and it's a hard one to answer because we don't work on first come, first serve. We allow our dogs to choose their job. So if people are coming in for a successor dog, so they've had one of our dogs and they're coming back for a successor dog, we ask that all of our dogs are retired by the age of 10, earlier if necessary, but absolutely by the age of 10, our dogs should be on the couch and eating bonbons. And that person may want another a successor dog or need a successor dog, those people kind of go to the top of the list. But again, it's the dog choosing their job. So even though somebody for a successor dog might kind of work their way up to the top, that top might mean 6 months, it might mean a year and a half. If I were to say what our wait list is, I would say that it's about 3 years right now.
Wow.
2 to 3 years.
Great. Well, this has been really fascinating, Jody. I learned a lot, and yeah, I want to come see the dogs sometime and play with your puppies.
Yes, yes. And when we have a litter of puppies, I'll invite you down to snuggle a litter of little tiny little ones.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for being here. And I think we are done. So
Awesome.
Have a great night.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Bento.
Bye.